Mm. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Great. Welcome
Mm,
everyone to the cert-manager development meeting. The date is the 15th of June, 2022. Yeah, I think it's usual suspects today. So will just go ahead and start us off with the agenda. The first thing is the Google Summer of Code, the cert-manager testing add-ons design document. I see, Urbe, you're tagged with this, so I'll hand it over to you.
uh, yeah. I'm going to talk about my GSoC works in this week. I have been finished the proposal last week and implemented a demo to verify it. I'm going to open this proposal to public and welcome to comment it fairly. And if you have any questions, I can improve it according to your comments. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks so much. Just making myself familiar. This, I think I've seen bits and pieces fly past with Slack, but I don't think I'm the most up-to-date person to know too much about it.
Yeah, like Shai-Chang has done some really good work on this. The idea is basically to use Terraform. So yeah, the Google Summer of Code project is mostly to help maintainers and like people who just want to play around with cert-manager locally to like reproduce issues and stuff like that, to install cert-manager with and configure it and install it together with like external dependencies, like like ingress, like gateway, for example, like gateway controllers or Vault or something like that. And like Shai-Chang has written a proposal to create a bunch of Terraform files and like kind of configure the dependency order using Terragrant, which is quite interesting because we've not used that tool yet, I think, in our infrastructure. Yeah, so like I think this is probably going to be something that will be quite helpful for maintainers, just when trying to quickly set up like a local testing environment. So I'm quite excited about the outcome of this. And yeah, the goal of the design document is so, like obviously the success of this project depends on whether people will actually find it like convenient to use. So it would be good to like hear from maintainers if this is something that they would find useful. And yeah, again, thanks, Shai-Chang. I'm probably like slaughtering your name, by the way. Thank you for the design. It's great.
Awesome, sounds really good. What's the time frames for this kind of stuff? How long does Google Summer Code and stuff go on for? And what's the kind of general timeline for this work?
That's the last day, I think, is sometime mid-September. The idea for so this would create both a general framework where where like anyone who knows how to or who who is able to can add scripts to install more dependencies, but what we want to actually add is cert-manager with Vault, cert-manager with Contour, I think, and like the gateway CRDs. And I think, like Shai-Chang, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think there was also cert-manager with Nginx Ingress. Need to double check myself. But yeah, with the idea that this is something that will be continuously worked on as there are like more kind of tooling that we need to install and cross-configure.
Awesome. Sounds really good. Thank you for putting the work into this design document. It's really good. Nice. I don't know if anyone else has anything else to add. Move on.
If you,
Yeah, go ahead.
if you have if you have any questions, you can comment in this doc. I will reply to you. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. I think I've seen TerraGrunt before, but I've definitely never used it. Send it around. Cool. Where am I? Cool. The next thing is the timeouts design proposal for cert-manager issuer timeouts. I'm not mistaken. Don't know if you want to take it away, Ash.
Sure. Yeah. I should prefix this by repeating what I said before we started recording, which is that this is incredibly boring, and like, just prepare yourself for that reality. Like, this is more words than needs to be written about this. This is not a particularly complicated thing. The proposal is not complicated. I don't think we need to discuss this endlessly. It's just I had to write it down so that we've got one thing to discuss. All of this can be TLDR'd pretty simply to say, we currently have a few different timeouts which are causing people problems. They need those timeouts to be probably about 60 seconds or longer for their ACME issuers to succeed. That's Sector-Go and Zero SSL both have problems. Our timeouts are multiple, but they're often around 10 seconds, and that causes problems because 60 is greater than 10. That's the problem. My proposal is to increase the number 10 to 120 because that's bigger than 60, and that will unblock these people. And is also the simplest possible change without us having to change other stuff. We don't need to add any flags. We can just do this. I believe that's safe because Crossplane have, if you scroll down, Crossplane have a lot of all those links. They have many controllers. They have hundreds of CRDs, and their controllers all have, well, the core controllers that they have all have timeouts, and those are generally 2, 1, or 3 minutes. So I think 2 minutes is a pretty safe bet for us to go with. I don't think we're going to do more numbers than them. If we do, people will have to increase the size of the pod that they run cert-manager in, but that's an operational concern for them. So what I'm saying is, we increase the timeout on things that already have timeouts. We're not adding anything new. We increase the timeouts that where they already exist to 2 minutes, which fixes the problems for everyone. There's also an HTTP timeout that ACME clients would hit. That's currently at 30 seconds, and I'm proposing to increase that to 1.5 minutes, which is still greater than 60. It's bigger than a minute, so that the requests can go through on that. There's also some timeouts added by a logging middleware for ACME. I think that's the wrong place to add them. There's a lot of words about that in this, and I had a PR to remove those timeouts. I'm going to take the commit from that PR and add it into any PR that I do in the future, because those timeouts are 10 seconds. They're added in a logging middleware, and we can just use the HTTP timeouts in the thing that we're wrapping using the middleware instead. And those timeouts will do the trick. I don't think, in retrospect, having written all of these words, that this was a worthwhile use of my time. Like, this is so simple. I don't think in the future, when we have similar bugs like this with fairly obvious fixes, that this is the amount of work that should be required to do them. But this is the proposal. Basically, I can have the PR written very quickly. I can probably write the PR quicker than I wrote this proposal, and I think we should do it. And I don't think this needs to be configurable until someone asks for it to be. And 2 minutes is a sensible default because that's what Crossplane uses, and they seem fine with it. And they're actually looking to increase it now. They have open issues where people are asking if they can increase it above 2 minutes on some of their controllers, which will hit the same thing. If it's good enough for them, I think it's good enough for us. I don't really know what I want out of this meeting, but except to sort of present that, like, this needs to be done, and I think this needs to be done before 1.9, and it needs to be backported. My intention is kind of to take all these words and convert them into a very simple PR and then just do that. If someone has great concerns about that, then please let me know. I don't expect there to be, but like, if there are, then sure, I'll discuss it.
So, quick question about the cross plan. Do you know, like, if if they have situation where for any of those CRDs, there's likely to be a large number of custom resources?
They actually have a controller which is watching CRDs themselves, like CRD resources, and the open issue is, which is linked in this doc, is someone who has like 750 CRDs installed on the cluster, and they need to bump the timeout on that controller for that reason, because there's so many CRDs in the cluster. So they do have a case like that, and they want to bump the timeout. I suspect that there's more work going into that, because there's all kinds of like parsing logic and things going on with the CRDs that they'll be doing there. I think in our case, if these reconcile loops start to hang, because sorry, someone at my door. If these reconcile loops that we have start to hang, which would happen with like sec2go when it's taking like over 60 seconds to respond to a HTTP request, all we're doing is waiting for that socket to return more bytes. We're not doing any busy work there, and we've not got much processing to do on it. We're just waiting on a socket. That's all that's blocked in that Go routine that's running. That's not particularly heavyweight, just waiting on an HTTP socket. In fact, I think this increasing these timeouts will actually reduce resource consumption quite significantly, because these things will succeed first time rather than having to be recreated several times while it sort of churns trying to get a response. Like at the moment, it'll try 10 times and it'll time out 10 times, and so it'll recreate the same reconcile loop 10 times, if that makes any sense. So I think by letting it succeed, this will actually reduce resource usage.
Perhaps, well, I need to read the design document, but are we concerned at all about, or is it talked about the filling up the worker queues by increasing the timeouts?
No, not really.
So say I have a cluster that I'm using it for lots of different issuers types, or just different issuer types in general. Say I'm using it with sec2go, which we know can be problematic, as well as ICO-CSR with, let's take for example Vault, which we know is typically fine, but the volume there is quite high. So let's say I've got got a 1,000 pods or something, or 10,000 pods. So let's say like request rate of, making up numbers, 1 every 3 seconds. Like, could it be problematic that we are potentially filling up the worker queues with these timeouts? Could take very long.
What I would say is, I would be concerned about that if we were designing cert-manager from scratch. That would obviously be a concern, but the vast majority of our controllers don't have any timeout at all. Like, we just YOLO it, and if we hang, then we hang, and so be it. Like, these are actually 2 controllers where we have timeouts, but that's kind of coincidence. Like, the rest, just we don't care or have anything in place to mitigate that. I don't have any numbers on whether we're going to start to exhaust worker queues here. I would be astonished if we do, but we don't care about this anywhere else. So I don't, like, if we increase this timeout, these controllers are still in a better place than all of our others, where we just don't care at all. Like everything else is in a bad state. This just makes this fixes the problem. like is all this does, and doesn't really make anything much worse than everything else we already have. And like I say, this works for crossplane who have many controllers across all kinds of things. They use 2 minutes in a lot of places, and that seems to work for them. I don't know of a reason why we would be more concerned about what we do than what they do about theirs. Like they're a bit of a special case because they have so many different providers for different cloud providers, but like it's the same sort of idea that they call out to an external service.
And part of your thanks, no, that makes sense. And yeah, the fact we don't have timeouts on the other calls is odd. But that's a completely separate conversation.
Exactly. I think we totally should do that as a priority. And I started writing that PR earlier today, and then I was like, this is way too much. It's never going to get backported. So this is the minimum that I think can be backported.
And in crossplane, they don't differentiate, or they don't include separate HTTP timeouts to their reconciler timeouts. Like they're one and the same things.
Yeah, the approach different projects varies on that. Some things have HTTP timeouts. Crossplane doesn't seem to care much about HTTP timeouts, so they do run the risk of having hanging like client go clients. I'm not sure that those are ever configured, but it's actually a thing I've discovered this week is it's incredibly hard to find out what the timeout on a client go HTTP client actually is. Like it's dark magic to work anything like that out. Like generally,
and more for like the clients rather than the Cube clients. They're like the provider clients. Let's say that's like talking to like a random API or whatever that's separate from Cube.
I didn't look deeply at the provider clients. I looked mainly at the core ones, which are what I linked here. A lot the AWS one at least didn't have timeouts universally, but I'm not sure that they're setting anything explicitly, so it could be defaulting to whatever comes from AWS. But like their core controllers, which are sort of the gold standard, I guess, they all seem to have these context timeouts. Like actually, an interesting sort of sideshow to all this is that I'm increasingly thinking that context timeouts aren't the best way to do this. Like I think they should be a last resort. So you'd have pulling a number out of thin air, 3-minute context timeout on everything. And it's like every single reconcile must be faster than 3 minutes. But actually individual timeouts should be configured on a per HTTP call basis. And that would be like 60 seconds per call or whatever. And that's the sort of granularity to do it. Like have the context be the last resort, because the error message is necessarily always going to be terrible with context. It's always going to be timeout exceeded, and it's not going to be clear to people that it was actually a hanging HTTP call necessarily. Like the error information might be there in the error, but actually it's probably just going to be context timeout. Deadline exceeded.
Yeah, I think I certainly agree with you. Like that's definitely how it should work. I do think that the interface context is the best way of doing these timeouts. I think we can do a better job there of implementing a actual HTTP client context implementation that to be reused everywhere and certainly have a better error message.
We could also guard everything with if errors.is context.deadline exceeded. Because if we are, like if we'll know at that point in the stack where we are, like if we do an HTTP call and then if it errors, just like in the controllers where we say if errors is not found, we just ignore it. But you can say like if errors is context deadline exceeded, then you can return a proper error with the call you just did and any context.
I mean more of a context implementation, which you can wrap a context with, and then you can rewrite the actual error.
Okay, you mean implement the interface?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't quite clock it.
Yeah, that's.
Because then we can write whatever we want, right? And save a lot of pain.
That's it. It's an interesting idea. Obviously, that's down the road. But certainly, I think we should have a context timeout on every controller. I'm not going to do that anytime soon, but I think that should be a pretty big priority for us to have. If we're concerned about things like exhausting worker queues, like we should have a timeout on everything at least. But yeah, like I said, that's a different thing. And yeah, headline of all of what I just said is just take a look at this. I'm going to start writing the PR anyway, and I hope that it won't be too controversial.
And I haven't read the design in full, obviously. Like, just to be clear for myself, like we're assuming we're going to backport this change because, as a project, we deem that this is the current behavior is so destructive that it warrants backporting to help users today.
That was the consensus when I raised it in the last bi-weekly meeting, and there was quite a lot of people in there, and nobody seemed to take issue with that. I think definitely, like, I've not got a link to the actual comment, but in one of the messages on one of the issues, essentially someone got rate limited by Let's Encrypt. They panicked because their organization needed certificates and they couldn't issue them. So they like bought some other issue or started using Zero SSL or Sectago or whatever, because that was a way for them to get Acme certs in short order and they needed it to work. And then cert-manager didn't work with the new issuer because it took too long. And that's a horrible experience for people to have. And we don't need to put them through it. Like they were already panicking, is what I'm saying. They'd already panicked because they got rate limited, and then cert-manager didn't work after they'd thought they'd found the solution, which, yeah, it makes it worse. It's not really our problem because they could have just not got rate limited, but it'd be better for us to help them.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, and I agree. The software just is not fit for purpose for a set of users in a very specific scenario, and this 2-line change will fix this specific problem for them. I think I agree with that as well. As a side note, yes, I want to kill this. I might spend some time this evening to destroy this error message and try and implement that kind of custom context. So gross.
I can understand that desire for sure.
Yeah. I wonder if this is super sidelined, but or maybe you probably want to make like a cert-manager / context repository. Does that even make sense? And then we can use it across projects.
I wouldn't necessarily be opposed. Crossplane seems to have a pretty good way of this. Like they have a helper repository for controller stuff. Like I'll definitely be referring back to how they do things more in the future because I've gained a lot from looking at their stuff. So it might be worth looking at what they do if they do anything. They probably just use context background, then it won't help, but definitely worth a look.
Out of interest, just purely theoretically, if it was the case that for someone the worker worker queues would be filled up, what would the behavior be like? Like, would I be able to notice this? Like what would be the side effects? Would it be just the case that basically stuff wouldn't get done? I'm just wondering, like, how
nothing would happen. So everything in the webhook would be fine. So you could create and update and delete resources, and you still have the same like validation and stuff. That would all behave as normal, but nothing of the controller would do anything.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, how would people be able to spot that this is the issue, that the controller is, that nothing's happening because the controller is currently
very
doing
difficult.
something.
Yeah,
like,
because
you'll need to watch out for this a little bit, I guess.
And it wouldn't even say anything in the log line. One thing we could do is have a Go process watching for the size of the worker queue, and perhaps firing off like a warning in the log to say that the worker
saturation
queue
or-
is really high or the worker queue is maxed out or whatever. That might be a way to mitigate that. And of course, the fix is to restart the controller.
But like I mentioned, we don't have timeouts on most of our controllers as it stands. So if that's a thing we're concerned about, that could already be happening with no way of us knowing, because we don't have those timeouts anywhere else. Like the timeouts that we have help in the specific cases that they're there for, but for others, we don't have it. So,
Yeah, but like we only care about the ones, like basically we care about the Acme, Venafi, and like Vault. I mean, we don't really, I think that we don't really care about controllers that just call out the Kube API server, something like that, I imagine. Like there
Sure,
isn't that much risk, as in.
the risk is lower, but like Kube API server is still an HTTP server that can still hang. Like,
yeah, but in that case, their whole cluster would already, I think, be broken, so that wouldn't.
Sure, but I guess I'm wary of adding anything except to the minimum changes here, because it's hard enough to backport things. It's hard enough to change anything at all, ever, let alone backporting things.
Cool. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not saying you have to add. I was just wondering, like, what we have to look out for, just if we want to be kind of like seeing that nothing broke.
Yeah, my gut is that nothing will change for anyone, or if people are being affected by that, then they're using Acme servers which are really slow, and I suspect they're going to blame the Acme servers that are really slow. It's like, because it is their fault, right? Like it's not really okay for them to be taking 60+ seconds to respond to HTTP requests. Like they should rather be. I'd rather a server return to me a 502 than take 65 seconds to respond to me. But you know, it's not happening. Whatever.
Get it with fire. Cool. Are everyone happy to move on?
I certainly am.
Is this it's another side note? Is this merged into the website yet, Mal?
Soon. Yeah, I need to fix the website first. It just the website is, the CSS for the website is very poor, and that's why I haven't merged this document to the website yet. But when I will have done that, I will probably remove this or have a link at the top saying to go see the website.
Cool. Yeah, because this is a very good document. Cool. As I see it, oh no, there's one more. The Google Summer of Docs update. This is assigned to you, Mal. Do you want to take it away?
Sure. So I think Mihak, who is on the call also, thanks Mihak for joining. So Mihak has joined us as part of the Season of Docs program funded by Google. And for 3 months, Mihak is working with us, more specifically me and Richard. Well, and we are figuring out what we need to do to get to a point where the website is usable or feels usable to other folks than us. Because right now it is usable, maybe it is usable for us, but not for everybody else. So Mihak is driving the document. So there is a link to this GSoD document, working document, where we do this phishing log exercise or task, or like we list the questions, the tasks. We try to drive the effort that we haven't started yet. We haven't started doing anything on the website yet because we still need to figure out which areas need to be worked on first. And so Mihak has been doing a great amount of work on figuring out which questions have been asked, giving links, and yeah. So we are one third into the program. We only have 2 months left. And so hopefully we will have, I think this page is already a good output or outcome of this, of the Google Season of Docs. Mihak, would you like to share a word on this?
Yes, I think the good thing is that we do see a lot of areas of improvement. While we were working on the friction log, we realized that the gaps, the knowledge gaps, and now we are just trying to put everything together so that we can start connecting the dots and have a proper plan. It is a good thing. If you just scroll a bit down, there are a couple of tables, and what we have done is, yes, right here, we've written a problem statement, and then we're adding the relevant links in the second column. If you just scroll down, there are more problem statements, and there are multiple links attached to each problem statement. So we're just trying to see that what kind of problems are more popular among the community, and that's where we'll start off. So it's more like feedback-driven restructuring effort.
That's a good term, feedback-driven. And we try to approach it in a, I like when Richard say he likes the scientific approach, although we have been having, it is very hard to do. It takes a massive amount of time. This friction log thing is very hard. Also, the table that you're showing right now is like, it takes an immense amount of time to do. It's a lot of grunt work, and we still haven't worked on the website yet. But I think it's more important to focus on this than working on the website directly, because otherwise we will waste our effort into and we won't really know whether it's worth it or not. Also, this friction log thing is also a good way to measure whether we will have made an impact on users or not. Because yeah, that's important to me, have a proof that we did something to change the experience. Thanks, Mihak, for sharing, and thanks for the work. Also, thank you, Richard, for working on this. Oh, maybe Richard's not here.
I am here. I'm listening.
Oh, okay.
I'm not
That's
visible.
fine. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Anyways, that was my bit of presentation. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm a bit flabbergasted by the amount of work that's in this document. I just keep seeing all these links. It's like, God. Very impressive. Well done. Yeah, I don't know what more to add. It's really good. Yeah, I too like the idea of this kind of feedback driven. Cool. Has anyone else got anything to add? This talking point. No, we can go back. That's the last thing on the agenda. We have the CI test grid. If you wanted to do some of that this afternoon. I think we've got 20 minutes left of the allotted time, or we can all finish early.
I vote finish early.
No, wait, 1 second. I want to mention something that is close to my heart. I will add it here, this issue. So 3453. It's an issue about someone, it's a DNS01 issue. So when cert-manager tries to solve a DNS01 issue, challenge, it will have to find out which zone. By zone, I mean the domain, the top domain, yeah, the domain of the zone, like the apex of the zone. And it uses this string and give it to give it to the API, like the DNS provider. For example, it gives this string to the DNS, Cloud DNS API when it updates, it adds the TXT record. And this issue has been going on forever, and I can't move it forward. Right now it is a bit stuck again. I know it should have a document, a design document, but the issue has not been pinpointed yet. I think James Molly is still trying to figure things. So I promised I would do unit tests. Not unit tests. Probably unit tests around find zone by for FQDN. Because I assume this function is not working properly, but I don't have much time. But I very much think there is something off here. It doesn't, because of the fact that it doesn't follow NS records. And yeah, I would like to have this moving forward, because this person has been asking me a couple of times. And also, I think it's common sense that it should be working in the case you use NS records, because any DNS resolver would do the right thing, but this custom resolver doesn't. This find, how do you call it? Find by FQDN, something like this. It's just, yeah, find zone by FQDN. That was my update. Nothing to add.
DNS makes me always makes me nervous. It's all magic to me.
I've got two things to say. I think I don't think cert-manager should be trying. Hang on. Have I understood this correctly? Are we simply talking about cert-manager's attempt to do like recursive resolution of the DNS name as the self-check?
No. Here, what it does, the reason it does this is because cert-manager wants to know when it does, for example, DNS, RFC, the RFC provider.
Yeah.
For updating TXT records. Cert-manager needs to know which zone. By zone, I mean, for example, example.com. The apex of the zone, it needs to update. This has nothing to do with DNS resolution. It needs to find the zone, and this is broken because we assume things. We assume people don't use NS records, for example. That's my understanding of the problem right now. And it's not broken in other parts. For example, the self-check would work. Would work. Because it would work because the recursive thing would work. It's not a problem. It's not an
and is it possible to do this generically? Doesn't each DNS API, do all the DNS provider APIs require you to specify the zone in which you place?
I don't know why we're doing this.
Can you not simply supply the fully qualified text record domain name and then let the API sort out which zone it belongs in?
I don't know why we do this in the first place. I don't remember. I think it has to do with non-authoritative. I don't know exactly why we do this. Frankly, I would give the zone in the issuer and just use that to give it to the DNS API.
Right.
That's, but I still don't know why and it doesn't explain here in comments why we have to use it. I still need to ask James Only. Like I've been asking this forever, and I cannot wrap my head around this. Probably we don't need it. Probably like Acme. How do you say Acme bots? No, cert bots. I think cert bots doesn't do this at all because you give it the apex directly. You don't need to figure it out.
this function looks to be used in other packages. Well, it used to be used everywhere. Or
Yeah, it's used whenever we need to retrieve the zone. We use this, like the zone. What I mean is the apex domain.
But it's only specifically broken in the RFC implementation.
So I say RFC because I know the RFC provider needs to know the apex in order to do the DNS updates. But as you can see, it's probably broken everywhere else. Anytime the zone is needed and we don't follow NS records, then it's broken.
I can't remember what zone means. Is it the same as start of authority? An SOA, a zone has NS records, has its own name servers.
It's SOA is the record, and what we call zone is just the domain, the apex domain, the roots. So at this level of the tree, you would see an SOA record. So it is very closely related. But actually.
And what are the minimum set of, like, how could I achieve this bug? What's the minimal reducible way of you reproducing this?
Reproduce the bug. I need to. That's actually what James Smalley is asking me to do. It's reproduce the bug either as an unit test or as with bind, for example, with fake. I need to do it. I don't have the time to do it. I know I could do. I know I can reproduce it because it's obvious there is a bug. It's not obvious, but I think there is a bug.
So they're like it's to do with something like delegating a subdomain and then trying to get an certificate on that delegated subdomain.
Exactly. So instead of CNAME to delegate
like an NS delegation.
Yes, you would use an NS delegation, and you would delegate the whole of Acme. How do you say? Like underscore Acme. I don't know. I don't remember the name. But yeah, you would delegate this instead of using CNAME, and there are good reasons to do it, I think.
Oh, so you'd only delegate the challenge, or you do the NS record on the challenge part of the domain? Like, so you send NS record on the underscore Acme bit.
Yes, you would delegate on this domain,
right?
The underscore domain. You would the whole domain. That actually, so the zone would be this txt domain thing.
And why would you want to do that?
Because why not? It's a
yeah, sure.
Like delegating. It's CNAME is one way.
Yeah.
And delegating is another way.
Yeah. I guess people just prefer CNAMEs because it's quicker, I guess, or less moving parts with that.
So I need a.
I don't know DNS very much.
I don't know. Yeah. I would actually, this person Claudio, who interacted with me in this issue, is the best person to answer. He seems very knowledgeable, but I can't reach him. Like, he's only available on this GitHub issue. He's not available on Slack. So I cannot find his name either. There's no email because he didn't participate yet to open source projects.
They have a Let's Encrypt. Wait, am I saying no? Yes, they have a Let's Encrypt subdomain which they delegate to, and that is where they set all the challenge TXT records to.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, and then the zone contains this.
Yeah, I can see why you'd want to do that.
I mean, I would, if I didn't know I could use CNAME, I would just use, and if I know really well DNS, I would use name server delegation. But because it's another way of doing it. And also, it doesn't require you to put this CNAME follow. because NS record is plain DNS. There's no, it doesn't need anything else. Anyways, that's it.
Cool. Looks like we've eaten up enough time now, but I don't know if it's even worth me opening the CI test grid URL. So some people might be happy with that, some might not be. So should we end the meeting there, or yeah, has anyone else got anything to add?
Is there like an action item from that last thing we talked about? Like what's the what's actually going to be done? Like does somebody just need to reproduce it, or?
Yeah. The next step is for someone to reproduce it, like make sure it is an issue. More specifically, it would be nice to have a unit test that shows the wrong behavior of find zone by FQDN. Like
should
that would be.
Should I add an action item and I'll get back to it next meeting?
Yeah. If you like, yes. I can add it if you want. Done.
Cool. Yeah, unless anyone else has anything to add, I'll go ahead and stop recording.